Too Much Information is a production of iHeart Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Too Much Information, the show that brings you the secret histories and little-known facts behind your favorite movies, music, TV shows, and more. We are your final answers of frivolity, your maestros of the multiple-choice questions, your regents of Regis Philbin. My name is Jordan Runtagh.
Your call of friends who don't answer phone calls. And I'm Alex Heigl.
And today we are talking about the game show phenomenon that burned fast and bright like a shooting star across the Y2K landscape. I'm talking about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The title lacked a question mark because, let's face it, it's not really a question, is it?
It should have just been called Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
You want this?
Sure. Yeah.
You pathetic dreamer.
I don't know, I'll keep the little SOBs happy. Those thrilling initial episodes honestly felt like less of a game show than a televisual event when it first began airing in the United States as a 2-week special in the late summer of 1999, almost exactly 25 years ago. And honestly, I think this was the key to its success. It wasn't just a quiz show with unusually high dollar amounts. This felt like history. No one had ever been given this kind of money on television before. And this take might be more unique to me. I'm curious what you have to say about it. But I was a budding historian around this time in 1999. And this was right before the turn of the millennium, when we were inundated with coffee table books and TV miniseries and special edition magazines that all offered like highlight reels of major 20th century moments. So in a way, I feel like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was able to ride that wave because of all those supercuts of the Beatles on Ed Sullivan or Nixon's resignation that all kind of helped prime the population to recognize and crave another major television moment. And it was also kind of the perfect way to close out a century that had been defined by TV.
I would agree with your take. It was a neat way of hearkening back to this thing that everyone loves, game shows, and providing some kind of fresh format in it, even if it was just jewel tone ties.
I forgot about like Regis's actual style on the show until researching
Well,
this.
so I went to a Catholic school and we had to wear ties,
I didn't know that.
yeah, ties were part of the middle school uniform. So then when this show came on, obviously I went out and bought like 3 cheap jewel tone ties and just rotated through those for the rest of my school career.
Did you have to wear ties in high school too?
I didn't go to Catholic high school. Probably where it started going wrong for me. At least in terms of making connections, not in terms of actually getting closer to my faith.
I mean, that's the other thing about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire that made it so distinctive is that it didn't look like any other game show we'd ever seen at that time. This wasn't some colorful, bleep bloopy carnival-like game like Wheel of Fortune or even Jeopardy around this era. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it looked like the set of Entrapment, starring Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones, or some other thriller. And of course, that doesn't factor in the actual drama at the show's core as people competed for this life-changing opportunity. It was basically reality TV a year before its generally agreed upon birth the following year in 2000 at the start of Survivor. But this was also reality TV at a time when the monoculture still existed, which made Who Wants to Be a Millionaire seem completely ubiquitous in a way that very few aspects of pop culture have felt since, like Barbenheimer and the Super Bowl. And I'm out.
Barbenheimer was real. I was there. I was there.
Were you a big fan? I mean, I just loved every second of this. I mean, I know I mentioned this on the show a lot, but it was very rare that I actually engaged with pop culture as a kid. So this was very special to me to be involved with this. I loved feeling like I was witnessing history and a part of something. And of course, I've also been very vocal on this podcast about how much I loved game shows, especially quiz shows. I was already a trivia nerd studying Trivial Pursuit cards at this time in a desperate attempt to convince my family that I didn't need to go to school because I was a genius, because I hated going to school, because I had separation anxiety. Didn't work, but kind of got my foot in the door of the whole trivia landscape. Also, one of my favorite movies around this time was Quiz Show, directed by Robert Redford, about the 1950s quiz show scandals, which is a great movie if you've never seen it. John Turturro and Ralph Fiennes. Really good. So all in all, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire hit all sorts of buttons for me. What about you? Was this mandatory viewing in your house?
I definitely remember watching it a good bit. We were not a Jeopardy house or really any kind of game show house, but it just came on in like the primetime time slot more than anything, and so I think that's how we were exposed to it. But I did love trivia. I still love trivia. I mean, I was on a middle school quiz bowl team.
I love that.
Yeah, I still can't do math and still don't know that much about sports. So those are my weak spots. But
You get geography?
geography was okay. I don't feel like math should be included in trivia.
No, that's not trivia. That's a skill. No, I feel strongly
and
about
that's
that.
where we would get creamed in the competitions. Is just like the second we were up against someone who had like a math whiz on the team, it would just be like, well, I can't carry this one. Sorry, guys. And then, yeah, I do remember watching this. I very specifically remember all the dramatic lighting cues and like laser shows and, like, and all of that stuff that was like, it really did feel different from like the Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune or whatever else I had kind of stumbled upon as far as televised game shows, period. And, Regis, man, he's great behind the mic. He's Regis. Like, come on. The thing that I always end up clowning on the most for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was like, even as a child, I knew that they were like clearly trying to, that the contestants were clearly told to like milk as much out of each at bat that they got. So even if it was something like, it was like, what is one of the chief ingredients in mozzarella? And they'd be like, well, I have an uncle who lives in Germany, so it's not currywurst.
The producer's behind the camera. Stretch.
Yeah, he's like, I've got, I went to high school in Jacksonville, so I know it's not alligator meat. And one time Elton John bottomed me at the Roxy in LA, so I know the answer isn't KY jelly, so I'm gonna go ahead and say milk, Regis. What is milk? It's just like that kind of as a very attention deficit child, that was just like, just say the right answer. Just say it and move. Come on. So
I mean, I never really thought about this until right now, but there was a kind of like sweet and sour aspect of the show where like the whole set and vibe of it seemed very menacing and frightening, but at the heart of it was the most genial man on television, Regis Philbin, who genuinely seemed to want you to win, which was very nice. Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I hated was the classic fake out. You really want to go with milk?
Well, it's a good thing you did.
Your final answer.
Oh, yeah.
Longer pregnant pause. Oh, I'm so sorry that your journey with us has to continue.
Yeah.
The answer was milk. That's Oprah. But yeah, that's like when I first started being exposed to a lot of those tropes from game shows.
Mm.
And then I got into Weakest Link because that lady was so mean, and I liked the mean lady. Shocker.
I didn't watch it that much because she was too mean. And I thought it seemed like a pale imitation of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And it was group play. I didn't like the group play.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for me, it's an endurance test. It's a sprint. It's just you against the questions and or Regis. I mean, I guess this is probably the time to mention that this episode has a very special resonance to me. Because as I mentioned...
when were you going to get that in?
I finally did. I mean, I've talked about this way too many times on this show, and I'm afraid I'm going to get some one-star reviews for shoehorning in a personal anecdote. But this one's relevant. I was lucky enough to make an appearance on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire back in 2013. And it was simultaneously a dream come true and also one of the biggest disappointments of my life. This was well past the show's glory years. It had moved out of prime time and was buried in daytime syndication. The hot seat was long gone. I had to just stand there awkwardly, which was weird.
Yeah.
Regis had also moved on, and so did Meredith Vieira, and I had to make do with Cedric the Entertainer, who was like... couple weeks into his, I think, 1 year reign as the host of the show.
His heart wasn't in it.
I hate to say it, but I kind of felt that too. It was also a huge letdown because by this point, the rules had completely changed on the show. And we'll get into this later in greater detail, but the show was in its shuffle period. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Yeah, good. It upsets me now even thinking about it. Instead of having the questions increase with difficulty and monetary value, which is, the entire premise of the show, The first 10 questions were just given to you at random, and the difficulty had no relation on how much the question was worth. So your first question could be the hardest, and you really had no idea if the question was like actually easy or if it was a trick question or what. It was really hard to like strategize, which maybe was the point, because as we'll talk about, the show ended up getting sued by the insurers who paid out the jackpot early in its life because they felt that the questions were too easy. Yeah, it was really, really hard. And if I sound a little bitter, it's probably because I am, because clearly I did not win $1 million. I actually made it kind of far, and then I blew it.
What'd you blow the money on? Or what did you get busted
question?
down to, and then what did you walk away with? I don't care about the questions. I care about the money.
I was up to $50,000, and I thought I knew the answer, and I got it wrong.
Oh, but 50 is a safe zone,
No,
right?
it's not. Not in this. Not in this way. Not in
What
this.
did they bust you
game.
down to? Nothing.
1,000. Which I mean, just happy to be there, etc., etc.
But that's like what, 800 after taxes?
It was like 600. Maybe even 500. Yeah, it was. I really thought I knew. You know what it was? I had one lifeline left. It was a 50-50. And I knew I'd already used the other two. And I thought, you know what? If I use this now, there's no way I'm going to make it to the million with no lifelines. It's just not going to happen. I'm reasonably certain I know this answer. And I didn't.
What was the question?
Question was, who's the only person to have filled in as a guest host for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno? Was it Jerry Seinfeld? Was it Betty White? Was it Katie Couric? Or was it Dick Van Dyke?
I don't know that. I probably would have guessed. Say them again.
Jerry Seinfeld, Betty White, Katie Couric, Dick Van Dyke.
Those are all NBC people, though?
I'm going to give you all the information I had.
Yeah. I don't know. Was it Dick Van Dyke?
I said Jerry Seinfeld because I thought they had some kind of like car collection.
You'd think
friendship.
So, but he doesn't have the charisma for that.
Well, no. It was, when I tell you the answer, you're going to be like, oh, it was Katie Couric, Today Show, Tonight Show. Little synergy there, NBC synergy.
Yeah, I should have guessed Katie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me too. And I didn't. And it was really sad. The worst part was every contestant's like assigned a producer to kind of like, shepherd you there throughout the day. Well, two things that were really bad. One was that I definitely got the sense that they were trying to like feed me questions that were like tailored to me. I got the sense that they thought that I was like good on camera in all the auditions and were like trying to like make the show go. Cause I talked about how much I loved like, game shows and late night TV hosts and like that kind of stuff. A lot of the questions were like, it felt not that random, bearing in mind a lot of the stuff I told them during like the pre-show interviews and stuff that had occurred during the previous weeks. So I felt like they were like trying to help me and I blew it. And the producer that was like assigned to kind of be my guardian that day, she was beautiful. And she was like, I like the look in her eyes afterwards was like, she seemed so disappointed. And then when I went to work at People Magazine, she was there. She'd gone to work on the People TV show. And so I had to go see her every single day that I worked there. Yeah. So that was just salt in the wounds all the time. So that pain stings to this day, but it hasn't dampened my ardor for this fantastic show. While researching this episode, I discovered that some psychotic website lists all the questions for every episode ever. And I found my batch. Do you want to try some of mine other than that one?
Oh, sure. Hit me.
All right. Here we go. Okay, my first question. FEMA recommends keeping all but which of the following items in your disaster supply kit? A, a radio, B, water, C, food, or D, condoms?
D, condoms.
Yes. Correct.
That is the lasers.
That is $5,000.
That was $5,000?
Again, the difficulty has no bearing on the monetary value. And that was I know. Okay, next question. Yeah. With a shade called Tweety, Sally Hansen's Fuzzy Coat products are a novelty line of what? A, face wash, B, self-tanner, C, nail polish, or D, hand lotion?
None of those words are in the Bible. Say all that again. I thought I just went into a feud state.
A, face wash, B, self-tanner.
What was the brand name?
Sally Hansen. C, nail polish, or D, hand lotion? With a shade called Tweety, Sally Hansen's fuzzy coats are a novelty line of what?
Fuzzy coats. So, nail polish?
Correct. You now have 12 grand.
What is nail polish?
Which of the following has Dennis Rodman never done?
Hmm.
Starred in a PETA campaign, headbutted a referee, said he was going to marry himself, or wrestle a pig.
I want to say headbutt a referee, but it could also be wrestle a pig because I feel like I would have seen that in like a countdown of things that Dennis Rodman has done. Headbutt a referee, they would have like kicked him out of the league probably. I'm going to say that.
I'm sorry. That's incorrect. But I didn't know the answer, and one of the lifelines at this stage was skipping a question. So I skipped that one. So you're still in the game. You are still in the game.
Okay. What was the correct answer?
It was wrestle a pig. Considering wrestle a pig and starring in a PETA campaign were in the same question, they would kind of cancel each other out. So I feel like it was either one or the other. What not only, quote, helps the medicine go down, as Mary Poppins noted, but also may help curb the burn from spicy foods? Just give it to me.
A spoonful of sugar.
Correct. You now have $22,000.
Easiest money I've ever made in my life.
I know. Trust me, I know. In a 2012 commercial for the iPhone, Zooey Deschanel asks her phone what bizarre question? Where's my dog? Is that rain? Can you ski? Or what's for dinner? This was more zeitgeisty in 2013.
Is that rain?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. She asks it what's for dinner after she realizes it's raining.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. You now have $47,000.
Damn.
I know. There's only one left. In an article about songs with incorrect grammar, Reader's Digest said a famous James Brown line should technically be what? Father has a brand new bag. Like a lovemaking machine. In a cold perspiration. Or I feel well.
It's I feel well.
Correct. I don't know why, but I asked the audience on this. I think I just was nervous.
Good is
yeah.
It's like the same thing when you're like, if you ask someone how they're doing and they say, I'm doing good. And you say, no, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Superman does good.
Yes.
It's the same pedantic horse.
And then the next one was
the one
I got wrong. But you got it wrong too. So now I feel better.
Yeah. All right. So, hey. And we walked away with $600. Probably could have got more money from that for just like stealing Cedric the Entertainer's hat. Or like just stealing something off the set and selling it on eBay.
I do remember we were told to like approach him very reverently. And I remember just kind of thinking, why?
Mr. the Entertainer.
Yeah. Please, Mr. the Entertainer is my father. Well, from the time Regis Philbin dramatically resigned his early TV gig on air, to the retired British Army major who was busted for allegedly cheating through a series of coughs, the way the set was designed to psychologically break contestants, and the truly badass move made by the first top prize winner in the franchise's history, here's everything you didn't know about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Very good. Like so many of my favorite things in this world, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire has its origins in my beloved United Kingdom. It's a show that's been remade and aired in 160 countries worldwide. Can you believe that?
I can't.
That is shocking.
Impressive. Yeah.
But it has its beginnings in the UK. And you know what else has its beginnings in my beloved UK? Friend of the pod, Lee W., a wonderful fan and generous contributor to our Ko-fi page. Thanks, Lee. We love you. And friend of the pod, John, too, of course. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire's famous format was created by David Briggs, Mike Whitehall, and Stephen Knight, who'd previously developed other promotional games for a morning radio show hosted by British broadcaster Chris Tarrant, who would become the eventual host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in the UK. Just a quick word on one of the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire creators, Stephen Knight. He went on to be kind of a big deal. He created the BBC series Peaky Blinders and also wrote a draft of Shutter Island before it was rewritten for the Scorsese movie. There's also a smaller anecdote that's funny to me personally. A friend of mine had a boss, her editor, who she absolutely despised, and he wrote a book called The 100-Foot Journey. And when it was a marginal success, it pissed her off. And when she learned that it was being made into a film starring Helen Mirren, it pissed her off even more. And it turns out that one of the creators of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire wrote that screenplay. Isn't that weird?
It's not a very good movie, though.
No, it's a terrible movie. No, no, no. Uh, he also wrote a biopic on chess master Bobby Fischer starring Tobey Maguire, which I've never heard of, but I'd be interested in seeing. A sequel to World War Z called World
World
War
War
Z,
ZZ?
World War Z2,
World War ZII?
Beneath the Planet of the Z. And most recently, and probably most notably, he wrote the script to the Lady Diana biopic Spencer, starring Kristen Stewart. And now he's apparently writing both a Star Wars film and a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, with Robert Downey Jr. eyed for the Jimmy Stewart role.
Wow. Dog shit.
That's weird. Yeah, all from the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire creator guy.
So he's never had any good ideas. No good car ideas. Not one.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is
I mean,
a good idea.
making attached to being in a Star Wars film in 2024 is like kind of embarrassing. And remaking Vertigo, okay, sick job, buddy. I can't wait to see what you'll do with that.
I mean,
Idiot. It's like somebody trying to remake Goodfellas or like, I don't know, The Conversation. How are you gonna remake Vertigo?
I mean, it's a movie that, like, I feel like the script and the story isn't really the selling point. It's what Hitchcock did with it.
And again, in like Star Wars at this point, they're just like focusing on a guy who was like vaguely out of focus at one point in one shot of like the second Star Wars film for like 30 seconds. And they're like, it's now called like The Book of Empire, Bleeplo. And it's just like a stupid little droid. And then that's the new character. I don't know. Yeah, him. Jordan, you didn't miss out too much. I'm going to go ahead and say.
Well, much of the same way that we forget one of the initial hooks of the game show Jeopardy was that it featured a novel twist. In that case, contestants are given the answer and are asked for the question. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was developed as a variation on standard game shows of the day. For example, there would be just one contestant playing as opposed to a group competing against one another like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. And they would be allowed to pull out at any time, even after they'd seen the question and the possible answers, which was unusual. Also of note were the 3 lifelines that would offer them assistance, which you'll remember were initially the 50-50, the phone a friend, which was quickly phased out after Google, and ask the audience. The working title for this game was initially Cash Mountain, which makes a certain amount of sense because, you know, the money increases with the difficulty of the questions. But Cash Mountain's not that grabby. And the ultimate title took its name from a Cole Porter song used in the 1956 film High Society, starring Frank Sinatra and Celeste Holm.
Another thing that set Who Wants to Be a Millionaire apart was the set. It was created by the British-born production designer Andrew Walmsley, who also designed sets for several theatrical musicals, including The Buddy Holly Story, and later went on to do TV shows like So You Think You Can Dance and America's Got Talent. His work on Millionaire, though, was innovative. While most game shows of the 80s and early 90s resembled casinos with bright flashing lights and lots of colors, like the Wheel of Fortune set is what you should all have in mind, the set for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire looked like something out of a sci-fi thriller. Other game shows wanted contestants to feel at ease. Millionaire literally wanted to make you uncomfortable. It resembled the interrogation chamber on a spaceship, with contestants literally in the hot seat. Although, to be fair, those chairs were modeled after those found in hair salons, which I associate that with stress. The floor was made of plexiglass, beneath which they lay a huge dish covered in mirror paper. The lighting cues were designed for maximum drama, with the lights dimming as the contestant progressed further in the game. There were also spotlights situated at the bottom of the set that zoomed down on the contestant when they answered a major question. Again, like an interrogation. To increase the visibility of these light beams, oil was vaporized, creating a haze effect. So, just like fog? Like if they just ran fog machines? Is that what you were saying?
I definitely said that
So it wasn't-
more dramatically than I needed to.
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't like, high test. A professor at Syracuse University, Dr. Robert Thompson, has said that the show's lighting system made the contestant feel as though they were outside of a prison with an escape in progress.
Sure, man.
Yeah, I buy that. The original licensing agreement for the US version of Millionaire required that the show's set design be replicated faithfully to the tune of $200,000, while this same licensing agreement applied to all other international versions of the show, which made the Millionaire set the most reproduced scenic design in TV history. What was like the poorest country that had a millionaire?
Oh, here we go. Okay, I put this later, but yeah, some of the international shows kind of skimped out on the top prize. Angola's top prize was worth 5,000 US dollars. Vietnam's top prize was worth roughly 2,000 US dollars, and Mongolia's top prize was worth a reported $347 US dollars.
So they definitely weren't paying $200,000 for the set.
I mean, a lot of it was like, Millionaire in like in Japan, like 1,000,000 yen is not that much money.
Yeah.
I think that the top prize there was like 10 million yen, which was only worth like, I think, $80,000 US.
See, if they really knew what they were doing in Mongolia, it would have been Who Wants to Be a Horse Lord? And they would have just been giving away horses. That means more to people than $347 American. It's probably what they're going to spend it on anyway. I don't mean that derogatorily. I wish I lived in Mongolia. Are you kidding me? I wish I was a Mongol. Just ride around with your horse all day. Eat sheep, I guess. Fight wars. They have dumplings, at least. I know that.
Momos, yeah. That's
Yeah.
Tibetan. That might be Tibetan.
Yeah, so either way, it sounds great. Sign me up. The licensing agreement also stipulated that other elements of the show's on-air presentation be rigidly adhered to. This included the musical score, lighting system, and even the host's wardrobe. So the gem-tone ties came first.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Initially, the hosts were required to wear Armani suits, as host Chris Tarrant did in the UK. Though Regis later released his own clothing line on Van Heusen.
I know, right?
The department store thing everybody buys their homecoming suits from.
Yep.
So some of those rules were later relaxed as the years went by. Speaking of the music for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was composed by father and son duo Keith and Matthew Strachan. Strachan?
I'll go Strachan.
Unlike older game show musical scores, Millionaire's musical score was created to feature music playing almost throughout the entire show. As the game progressed and the prize amounts increased, the theme was raised in semitone increments to increase the tension. Also, the soundtrack mimicked the sound of a beating heart, which added to the stress level as both the audience and contestants' pulse increased. Is it Sunny by Bobby Head?
Yeah, it just keeps going
goes up a half step.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time the form starts over again. That's cool.
That's right. There's no chorus to that or bridge. It's just
the same
line.
Sunny. And it just gets more and more desperate as it gets further out of the range.
I never thought about that. That's so cool. That is a great tune, yeah. There are 92 separate pieces of music written for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Isn't that nuts?
Holy shit.
I know.
As you meditate on that, we'll be right back with more Too Much Information after these messages.
Now we're in a section I like to call I Want to Be a Millionaire in America. Sung like the West Side Story tune.
I want to be a millionaire in America.
Yeah.
Like that?
Exactly. Thank you. It was a lot better than I could have done it.
The scansion, it doesn't quite work, but, we'll just, no bad ideas in brainstorming, buddy.
One of the coolest things.
Go on. One of the coolest things about Patty Lupone.
Close. Was in Greenpoint when they had that like drive-in movie theater right along the East River. They played West Side Story one night. And we went to go see it, and the opening has those like incredible overhead aerial shots of Manhattan. It was so cool to like watch that, and then like right off to the side was like actual Manhattan.
Is that?
Yeah, it was really cool. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire premiered in the United Kingdom on the ITV network in September 1998 and quickly captivated the nation for its ability to harness cinematic drama with what we now call reality TV. News of the show traveled across the pond to the United States, where it caught the attention of British-born, US-based TV executive Michael Davies. Davies was vice president at ABC, which was languishing in third place of the big three networks, to such an extent that it was in danger of actually being beaten out by Fox, which was then still seen as a relatively scrappy upstart. Davies knew he needed to make a bold move, and he turned his attention to game shows. This was kind of a weird move, considering the fact that the popularity of game shows was at an all-time low in the United States. Aside from The Price is Right, they were entirely absent from the daytime network lineups at the time. However, Davies helped create a game show for Lifetime called Debt, and, more germane to my interests, Comedy Central's brilliant Win Ben Stein's Money. So he decided to take a big swing at a primetime game show. Originally, he set his sights on reviving the classic quiz show The $64,000 Question, but then Millionaire debuted in the United Kingdom. Being British by birth, he asked some of his family members over there to tape the show and send him a VHS copy. And he subsequently ended up receiving about 8 FedEx packages from different family members, each containing a copy of Millionaire's first episode. Davies was so won over that he shelved the $64,000 Question reboot and decided to pursue an American version of Millionaire. In the storied tradition of good ideas getting presented to executives, ABC initially passed when Davies brought the idea to network brass, so he resigned his position there and became an independent producer, which, as I can personally attest, is a ballsy thing to do. Davies felt that the key to the success of Millionaire in the United States was attaching a celebrity host. He considered many broadcast stalwarts during development, including Peter Jennings, Bob Costas, Phil Donahue, and Montel Williams. What do you think of those?
Donahue, no.
Oh.
Montel, yeah. Peter Jennings, way too stiff for that.
Yeah. Costas, I could see Costas working.
They should have gone with who was a big sitcom guy at the time.
Ooh, Jeff Foxworthy. Although they did go it for him for Are You Smarter Than the Fifth Grader?
Yeah. Was Becker?
Oh, Ted Danson?
Yeah, it was Ted Dan. Was that still airing?
Oh, I think you're right.
They should have gone with Ted Danson.
Oh, man. You know who was on ABC? And I think his show had just wrapped, and he would have been great. And I think that this was he missed his calling. John Goodman. John Goodman is a genial game show host.
Yeah, that would have really worked.
For this stressful show, it would have been great.
Yeah.
I love him.
What about Crispin Glover?
What was he doing?
David Lynch. What about David Lynch? God, that would have been amazing.
I'm kind of shocked he hasn't done a game show pilot.
Yeah.
But the hosting gig went to the guy who apparently wanted it the most, Regis Philbin. According to show lore, he'd seen an episode of the British version and absolutely loved it, so he was an early adopter. And when Davies, the producer, approached ABC again after hiring Philbin, the network finally agreed to accept the US version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And now we have to do a brief history of Regis Philbin. We have to.
Must we?
We must. Regis, so named apparently because his father wanted him to attend his alma mater, the prestigious Regis High School in Manhattan.
That's loser shit.
Well,
I'm telling you right now, don't do that to your kids. I don't care if it worked. That's still like the most thirsty loser shit in the world.
Well, Regis got the last laugh because he didn't go there.
Oh, hell yeah. Good for him. It's like naming your kid Choate.
The producers for Millionaire couldn't have picked a bigger pro than Regis Philbin. By that point, he was nearing 50 years in the biz. He's been called the hardest working man in television, and not without good reason. In 2004, he earned the Guinness World Record for the most hours spent on US TV, 15,188 hours. All totaled, that's 633 days. So nearly 2 years of this man's life was documented on TV. Incredible.
Good for him.
He surpassed the previous record holder, Hugh Downs. Hugh Downs. It's like a name I know, but I don't really remember what he did.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
You could have made it up.
Yeah. While we're talking about Regis's TV records, he made 150 appearances on David Letterman's 2 late-night shows, making him Letterman's most frequent guest. He's such a pro that he had angioplasty on his left artery in 1993 and was back on the air 3 days later.
That's what you need in television.
Just a workhorse. When Millionaire was being developed for the American market, Regis was most familiar as the host of the daytime staple Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. He hosted his very first talk show nearly 40 years earlier with 1961's The Regis Philbin Show in San Diego. I mention this purely because of how hilariously low budget it was. He couldn't afford writers, so he began each show by just riffing with the studio audience, which was a move he borrowed from early Tonight Show host Jack Paar, which he would quickly make his own. The Regis Philbin show was picked up for national syndication in 1964, but it didn't last, and his slot was given to fellow game show legend Merv Griffin, the talk show host who, in his spare time, created Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, among many other game show classics. We've talked about him on our Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy episodes. Regis got his biggest break in 1967 when he was tapped to be second-tier Rat Packer Joey Bishop's sidekick on the Joey Bishop Talk Show. Borrowing from the dynamic of their competition, Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon, a recurring bit on the show was Joey Bishop, the star, playfully teasing Regis, who would just kind of eat it. But this blew up in everyone's face when Regis apparently started hearing rumors that the ABC brass were not happy with him and specifically hated his thick Bronx accent.
How much would that suck if your gig was being the guy that the most shit on member of the Rat Pack shit on?
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep. Well, that kind of explains why one day on air, he went on to a allegedly unplanned rant about not being wanted and being let down by the program, and he abruptly quit on air. And several nights later, Joey Bishop addressed his absent co-host on air and promised him that the frequent jokes were not meant to be taken personally. And Regis eventually came back a few days later. It went down as an epic bit of TV lore, but in Regis's 2 memoirs, he claimed that this walk-off was a prearranged stunt designed to boost ratings.
I don't believe it.
It didn't work. The show was canceled the following year in 1969. In either a medium funny bit or a hilarious bit of pettiness, Joey Bishop walked off the show unannounced live on air when he learned that they were canceled, leaving Regis to finish it out. And the time slot was then given to my beloved Dick Cavett.
The whole walking off thing that Regis did may have been another bit that he picked up from his hero, Jack Parr. The famously mercurial late-night host walked off The Tonight Show in February 1960 after growing frustrated that a joke about a WC, water closet or bathroom or house or what have you, was censored. The full text of the joke reads as follows. An English lady is visiting Switzerland. She asks about the location of the WC. The Swiss, thinking she is referring to the Wayside Chapel, leave her a note that said, in part, the WC is situated 9 miles from the room that you will occupy. It is capable of holding about 229 people, and it is only open on Sunday and Thursday. It may interest you to know that my daughter was married in the WC, and it was there that she met her husband. I shall be delighted to reserve the best seat for you, if you wish, where you will be seen by everyone. Probably killed in the 50s. So Jack Parr was pissed that that joke was excised from his broadcast and replaced by news coverage. His response to this overreaction was an epic one of his own, where he tearfully resigned on air, saying, I am leaving The Tonight Show. There must be a better way of making a living than this. There's a way of entertaining people without constantly being involved in some form of controversy, which is on me all the time. It's rough on my wife and child, and I don't need it. I like the National Broadcasting Company. They've been swell to me, and I've been pretty wonderful to them. I took over a show with 60 stations. There's now 158. The show is sold out. It's the highest, I think, money producer for this network. And I believe I was let down by this network at a time when I could have used their help. You have been peachy to me always.
And then he walked off.
Kind of a mixed bag of a note.
I think it's been theorized that he was bipolar or something. He definitely was.
Oh, interesting.
Was a moody gentleman.
Well, the man who finished out the show was our old friend Hugh Downs. The man that Regis would beat out for the title of Most Televised Man in 2004. Jack Parr stayed away for a month before his friend, the comedian Jonathan Winters, convinced him to return. His comeback was a major TV event, which opened with him strolling on stage and delivering a devastatingly deadpan, as I was saying before I was interrupted. Pause for applause. After the audience erupted in applause, Parr continued, I believe my last words were, there must be a better way of making a living than this. Well, I've looked, and there isn't.
Also got a huge applause.
He then went on to explain his departure with typical frankness. Leaving the show was a childish and perhaps emotional thing. I have been guilty of such actions in the past and perhaps will be again. I'm totally unable to hide what I feel. It is not an asset in show business, but I shall do the best I can to amuse and entertain you and let other people speak freely, as I have in the past.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's been theorized by some that he suffered from bipolar disorder, or he was just really stressed out about having to come up with an hour and 45 minutes of television 5 nights a week.
When do they institute writers' rooms to night shows?
I don't know. I mean, there might have been. I think there was some then too, but I think he was kind of like leading it. I don't think he delegated very well. No, he's a fascinating guy, Jack Parr.
Mm.
Anyway, Regis bounced around various TV gigs until beginning his famous morning show in 1983. At the time, the 9 a.m. time slot for WABC suffered from low Nielsen ratings because of competition from NBC's Donahue and CBS's game show block featuring Joker's Wild and Tic Tac Doe. Within a few years, he was joined by his new co-host Kathy Lee Johnson, later Gifford, and ratings took off. This allowed him to close the Ford dealership he'd opened in Gilbert, Arizona as a side investment a few years earlier when his TV career was looking a little dicey. That's adorable. If daytime TV made Regis a star, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire made him a primetime legend. This was not, however, his first time on the game show circuit. In 1975, he hosted a short-lived game show called The Neighbors, in which 2 female contestants guessed which of her 3 female neighbors said gossipy things about her. So it just seems like you're just like starting with your neighbors for money.
Yeah, I can do that.
New York Times journalist Alex Winchell wrote in 1999, "The X factor of Millionaire's success seems to be, besides the money of course, that Mr. Philbin genuinely wants contestants to win. By all accounts, Regis's reputation as a truly nice man was based in reality. One of my favorite examples of this is his friendship with Howard Stern. For years, Stern made a sport of making fun of Regis on air during his radio show. Really mean-spirited mockery. Then Stern moved into a new apartment building, and one day he entered the elevator to find Regis Philbin. Apparently, they were now neighbors. Regis could have very easily snubbed him, but instead he went full Reg. "Hey, you're new to the building, Howard. Welcome. Want to check out my apartment and meet my wife?" That seems like never mind. Regis gave Howard a tour of his apartment and offered him tips about where to go in the neighborhood and was generally just a great neighbor. And the next day on his radio show, Howard Stern publicly apologized to Regis, and the pair became friends from that day forward, which I find adorable. And while we're on the topic of seemingly random Regis connections, his son Daniel worked in the Pentagon and was branded a hero for his brave acts on 9/11.
You worked in the Pentagon? But okay. Shredding the right documents?
Also, Regis and Kathy Lee was on in the middle of the 9/11 attacks, and it's one of the most surreal episodes of TV I've ever seen.
I could not watch that. I don't know how you do that to yourself.
It's just them trying to make sense of what's happening. Like there's like a little like live news broadcast like on like the lower third, and yeah, it's very weird. They're like taking audience questions and just trying to like figure out what's happening. Very, very weird. It's on YouTube. Also, I don't know if you know this, but Regis has not one, but 2 albums of crooning classics. 1968's It's Time for Regis, and 2004 and 2004.
It's still time for Regis.
He does a version of Swanee.
No.
Yes.
All right, pump it in when you get at this. I gotta hear this.
Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIX. I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me, down by the Swanee. The folks up north will...
Oh, keep going.
And 2004's When You're Smiling. Sadly, this last release received poor reviews, and he never recorded another record, though he frequently sang duets with guests on Live with Regis and Kelly. And of course, let's not forget this classic fact we noted back in our Beauty and the Beast episode from years ago. Regis auditioned for the voice role of the Beast in Disney's Beauty and the Beast, which I still don't fully understand if that was just like,
No. So the U.S. version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire premiered on August 16th, 1999, as a special 2-week event with a half-hour game airing each night in primetime on ABC. Notably, the name lacked the question mark that appeared in the title of the British counterpart because Americans turn everything into an attack. When it's a threat. Which one of you bozos wants to be a millionaire? When asked about this, producers responded by saying, "Who wants to be a millionaire isn't really a question, is it? But which who is it? The who that's on first? The who's the next?
Pete
Who
Townsend?
among us? Who goes there? Which of the who's?
Whoville?
Cindy Lou Who?
Horton? Did Horton hear the who?
Yeah.
Is it the who that Horton heard?
Where were we?
Oh
It was
no,
the
I've
first-
gone cross-eyed.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed. It was the first U.S. network game show to offer a $1 million top prize to contestants, and the buzz this generated was immense. By the end of the first week, they'd reached an audience of 15 million. This initial run contained only 13 episodes, since the show is essentially just a summer replacement. It did so well that ABC scheduled another 2-week-long special event that November, with the episodes expanded to an hour. It wasn't until January 9th, 2000, after Y2K fever had calmed down, the fires were put out, that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was given regular status as a primetime show. And boy, was it ever. At the height of its popularity, it was airing on ABC 5 nights a week.
That's insane.
That's what I remember it as. The show drew in up to 30 million viewers during the 1999 to 2000 season, averaging number 1 in the ratings against all other television shows. Naturally, the success launched game show craze, spawned a series of imitators as rival networks either rebooted old shows like 21, aka the show that kicked off the quiz show scandals of the 1950s, or imported other shows from England and Australia, including Winning Lines, It's Your Chance of a Lifetime, and most famously, The Weakest Link. Hilariously, the producers of Millionaire tried to milk their cash cow by signing a deal with DIC Entertainment to make an animated spin-off titled The Adventures of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's dumb as hell. The proposed series was to follow the fictional winners of the show, who would have used their prize money to take trips to various exotic locations, while the fictional host would keep in touch with them through the Millionaire Command Center. So that like the World Bank, the IMF. I guess this was pre 9/11.
Yeah. It was in Building 7.
The idea was, per Wikipedia, silently scrapped without a formal announcement.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Too Much Information in just a moment.
Considering what a cultural pillar Who Wants to Be a Millionaire turned out to be, it's easy to forget that it was kind of a flash in the pan in the early 2000s. In many ways, it was a victim of its own success. Millionaire fatigue set in, and ratings began to fall during the 2000-2001 season, and by the following year, episodes no longer ranked in the top 20. ABC started to freak out as they fell from the first-place network once again, and initially they planned to switch the format to something that would emphasize comedy more than the game, and feature a host other than Regis. I don't know why that would be the solution. Mercifully, that never occurred. And ultimately, the primetime show was canceled, with its final episode airing on June 27th, 2002. Instead, they went to a half-hour daytime syndicated version that September. And this would prove to be too much for Regis, who was not only busy hosting his own daytime talk show, but also he was in his 70s at this stage. So the producers sought out a new host. Rosie O'Donnell was initially offered the gig, but she turned it down, so it went to Meredith Vieira. Can't get Rosie, you get Meredith. That's what I say. That's what I always say. Her tenure brought about many changes to the game. In 2008, they instituted time limits on questions. The hot seat was removed, supposedly because it made contestants too comfortable. And some of the lifelines were changed, most notably Phone a Friend, as Google began to gain popularity. It was later reinstituted, but a producer was on hand at the friend's house to make sure that they didn't Google. Yeah, isn't that right?
They break your neck afterwards.
Like
He's just like sitting there with
prod.
or like a hefty wrench, like aimed right at one of your kneecaps. He's like, I want you to think very carefully about what you're about to do.
But the biggest and dumbest change was instituting my hated shuffle round. I'm obviously biased because this is what ultimately led me to fail during my appearance on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but I strongly feel that it messes with the sanctity of the game. It's no longer a mountain. It's just random. It's just any other quiz show now. The first 10 questions are just randomly thrown out there. No ascending order of difficulty or monetary value. You just answer it and you find out afterwards how much money you got.
Kind of like having a career.
It's chaos. Total chaos. The second round took things back to normal. They called it the classic Millionaire round with 4 questions of increasing difficulty: 100,000, 250,000, 500,000, and the $1 million question. Given that this crappy system totally screwed with the game that everyone knew and loved, it's no surprise that the viewership for the syndicated show started to decrease. Meredith Vieira left in 2013 and was replaced by Cedric the Entertainer for a year, before being replaced by Terry Crews in 2014. And then the final host of the syndicated series was Chris Harrison of The Bachelor, I believe.
Sure, whatever.
He took over from Crews in 2015 and hosted until the show was canceled, with the finale airing on May 31st, 2019.
I had no idea it took that long.
I know. Jimmy Kimmel brought it back for a 20th anniversary season in 2020, for which he served as host and producer. And it was renewed for round 2 later that year, but then the 2020 chaos brought havoc to the show, resulting in a 3-year hiatus. It wasn't until 2024 that it came back for a 3rd season, tied to the 25th anniversary, this last July. That run ended at the end of August. It paired off celebrities for each game. Reunited Keenan and Kel. That was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
At present, the future of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire seems uncertain. But you're not here to learn about the sad decline of this beloved televisual franchise. You're here to learn about the money, aren't you? Aren't you?
Beg for it.
During the U.S. series run, including primetime syndication and specials, there have been 16 winners of the $1 million, 15 solo contestants, and one group of 2, Ike and Ann Barinholtz, the father and son comedy duo who won for the Celebrity Edition just this past August, making them the second celebrities to win the top prize. The first celebrity to win the $1 million for charity was Momofuku chef David Chang.
Oh, hell yeah.
He won during the 2020 reboot. He was the first $1 million winner in 11 years.
God, imagine how bad that made everyone else who'd been there those 11 years felt.
Yep.
David Chang just came in and whipped all of your asses in between 16-hour shifts at Momofuku.
A few other notable winners include Kevin Olmsted, who won on April 10th, 2001 during a special jackpot stunt on the show. And instead of winning $1 million, I guess the whole bit was that every time a contestant didn't win, it was like a rolling jackpot, and every episode they added $10,000 to the jackpot. So he took home $2,180,000, making him the biggest winner in television history at the time. It's back in 2001, so that's probably like $4 million today. Ken Jennings today has the record for the most money won on game shows.
Of course he does.
His cumulative total is $5,296,214.29. $4.5 million of which came from his run on Jeopardy. Ken Jennings was on other game shows too, which feels like,
Of course he was.
shouldn't have been allowed. Dude. Yeah, okay.
Oh, you think so?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we
it
got a
does feel
ringer.
little bit. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like bringing in a ringer, but Michael Jordan was allowed to flop at baseball. He
That's
should
true.
at least be allowed to try.
Yeah, fair. Another interesting story involves Ed Taunton, who appeared on the show in January 2001. This is when the whole jackpot thing was going on, and the jackpot was at $1,860,000. He got kicked out after getting the $16,000 question wrong, but was later invited back that September when he discovered an error in their question. This story is just absolutely deliciously pedantic. We should really have this guy on the show. As written, the question he got wrong, officially, was, scientists in England recently genetically altered what vegetable so that it glows when it needs water? He said tomato, which is also the answer he received by using the Ask a Audience lifeline. The correct answer was potato. However, per MillionaireFandom.com, after his run was over and doing some research, he discovered that the experiment had been done in Scotland, not England, and that an Oxford professor, Dr. Mark Knight, had been doing research growing tomato plants. thus rendering his original answer valid. After sending the show an email detailing this, they decided to bring him back.
Well, that's classy at least.
Right, I know. And during his second appearance, he resumed at $16,000 where he left off, and he went on to win the jackpot as it was at the time of his appearance. I don't even think they were doing the whole jackpot thing anymore, but they decided to honor it. And so when he got to the last question, instead of just making $1 million, they made it $1,860,000. So he doubled it, and he won. Is that incredible? Almost seems like a stunt. I don't think it was.
How deep does this rabbit hole go?
Right? I know. I love that.
In the first 10 months of the show's American existence, 6 people made it to the big question. So many that the insurance company that paid out the big jackpots actually sued the show's creators because the game was too easy. The first millionaire in the entire show franchise was John Carpenter. Not that one. And he did it without using any lifelines. Sort of. It went down on the November 19th, 1999 episode of Millionaire, and the crowd initially booed him when he revealed that he worked by day as an IRS agent, which was the correct reaction. But he ultimately won them over by doing the most badass thing anyone has ever done on a game show.
Yeah.
The final question was, which of these U.S. presidents appeared on the television series Laugh-In? With the choices being A, Lyndon Johnson, B, Richard Nixon, C, Jimmy Carter, and D, Gerald Ford. He asked to use the phone a friend option to call his father. When his father picked up, he said, "I don't need your help. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to win $1 million. Before immediately selecting the correct answer, which is Richard, "Sock it to me?" Nixon.
It's very good.
John Carpenter, not the other guy, later said, "I thought I'd look so cocky if I didn't use my lifelines, so I faked it." Not realizing that what he did, of course, was so much cockier. After taking a vacation with his winnings, he returned to his job at the IRS, explaining, "After the taxes, it's not change your life kind of money if you want to eat every day." As of 2024, Carpenter continues to work for the IRS. Yeah, he gets a pension. Like, what, 6 other fields, and that's still a thing? Carpenter also noted that the fame had a bigger impact on his life than the money, later stating, "The money doesn't change your life. What happens afterwards might." He kind of got overshadowed by Ken Jennings, but he was a big deal for the time. He was on the cover of People magazine, played himself in a Saturday Night Live skit, in which Donald Trump, portrayed by Daryl Hammond, announced that Carpenter would be his running mate in the presidential election. That was much funnier many years ago.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't understand the context of that skit, but it's pretty weird.
Afterward, Carpenter pretended to call his father before shouting, "Live from New York, it's Saturday night."
It was simpler time.
Carpenter appeared as himself in the second half of the 4th season of Oz.
HBO's Oz. Yes.
The brutal
Yes.
prison drama.
Yeah.
He plays a contestant in a fictional TV game show called Up Your Ante that the prisoners in M City are watching. He has also appeared on various anniversary specials of Millionaire. But enough about these winners.
Yeah.
Let's all make ourselves feel better by talking about the losers. Over the course of the program's history, 2 contestants have made it to the $1 million question and blown it, being bumped all the way back down to their $32,000 safety net. A man named Ken Basin missed it during a 10th anniversary primetime special of the show in August of 2009. He was caught with the classic rock in a hard place position that Jordan knows all too well,
Yeah.
walking away with $500,000 and finding out if he was right, or going for the $1 million and getting it wrong, which would result in him losing $475,000. Question was, for ordering his favorite beverages on demand, LBJ had 4 buttons installed in the Oval Office labeled coffee, tea, Coke, and what? The button wasn't labeled what. That was the answer. So we'll just pause for all of you.
Give him the
Oh,
options.
we got to give the options.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. The options were Fresca, V8, Yoo-Hoo, and A&W, presumably root beer. I don't care for A&W cream.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like the cream.
No. Have you got your answers in, all of you? Wonderful. Basin guessed Yoo-Hoo, and it was Fresca. Idiot. He was the first contestant on the U.S. version of Millionaire to miss the $1 million question. The next unfortunate incident, though, occurred during the daytime syndicated show in September of 2013 with contestant Josina Reeves. But this happened during the shuffle version of the game, so she had jumped the $250,000 and $500,000 questions and had only $100,000 in her bank, which still probably stung. The question was, in addition to his career as an astrologer and prophet, Nostradamus published a 1555 treatise that included a section on what? A. Training parrots to talk. B. Cheating at card games. C. Digging graves. And D. Making jams and jellies. She said digging graves, which was a stupid guess. There's not a handbook out there worth of materials on how to dig a grave.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I mean, oh, well, okay, I guess.
Dig a hole. Step 1. Fill the hole in. Step 2. That's not even a pamphlet.
Wait for somebody to die.
Step A. She said digging graves. As I said, a stupid guess. But it was making jams and jellies, which I probably would not have got either.
Yeah.
I would have said cheating at card games.
Yeah. If you're able to convince somebody that you can tell the future, cheating at card games seems like a logical
Feels like the
fault.
next logical thing. Yeah. We should also talk about Rudy Reber from the show's first U.S. season, who phoned a friend for the $500,000 question, and the friend was wrong. Fallout of the friendship was chronicled in a long Washington Post feature that ended in a very tragic murder-suicide. That's not true. I just made that up. I just lied to you.
And now we've got to talk about the infamous alleged cheating incident that went down during the English version of the show. I can't believe you left me to talk about this. This seems like something to be very much your...
But you love cheating.
That's true. Well, so do you. But I love the English.
You love deception.
Yes. Elaborate on that.
You just love all the... You like all that cloak and dagger shit.
Yeah, I thought you did too, but okay. The man in question is named Charles William Ingram, and his Wikipedia introduction describes him amazingly as, quote, an English fraudster, novelist, and former British Army major. He appeared on a September 9th, 2001 episode of the show after his wife and her brother had already appeared on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, each winning £32,000. I find it weird that so many members of the same family all qualified to get on the show, because I can personally tell you all the auditions and tests and stuff, it's not easy. That's weird. But anyway, per his Wikipedia, to prepare, Ingram practiced for about 20 minutes per day on a handmade fastest finger machine. That's the game you play to, like, when all the hopefuls line up at the beginning and put 4 things in order, and whoever does it quickest gets to go up to the hot seat. Ingram got to the hot seat, but used 2 lifelines early, ending the day at £4,000, with only the 50-50 lifeline remaining. When they brought him back the next day, the production team didn't expect him to proceed much further, but he ended up making it all the way to the $1 million top prize. And this is where it gets weird. Producers were suspicious of the guy from the start due to his risky, and some would say foolhardy moves. For example, one question was, who had a hit UK album with Born to Do It, released in 2000? After using his 50-50 as last lifeline, the 2 remaining answers were A1, which he believed the answer to be, and Craig David, who he said he'd never heard of. After very nearly locking in A1 as his final answer, he backed off and said that 80% of the time I'm wrong when I guess. So you know what? I'll go Craig David. Talk about not betting on yourself working out. That ended up being correct. And then at the £500,000 question, Ingram was asked, Baron Haussmann is best known for his planning of what city? Among the options were Berlin and Paris. Initially, he assumed it was Berlin due to his belief that Baron Haussmann was a German name. However, after a while, he inexplicably said, there's a possibility that it's Paris, and suddenly locked that in as his final answer. This got Ingram to the £1 million question. A number 1 followed by 100 zeros is known by what name? To which he thought the answer was nanomole, and initially said he didn't know what a Google was. This is pre-Google, obviously, the search engine. However, eventually he decided to lock in Google as his final answer, even though he didn't know what that word was, and he won the £1 million prize. An executive producer for the show was quoted as saying, it became obvious that he wasn't under the pressure that he should have been somehow. He should have been very, very careful and very certain, and he certainly wasn't either of those. In fact, producers were so suspicious that they conducted a physical search of his person before he left the studio, combing through his clothing, his shoes, and even his hair, looking for something that would have enabled him to cheat, but nothing was found. However, they did find it weird when the host of the UK version of the show, Chris Tarrant, went into Ingram's dressing room afterwards with a celebratory bottle of champagne, only to find Ingram and his wife viciously arguing.
Oh.
Because of this, producers suspended the jackpot payout while they investigated further. And what they discovered upon reviewing the tape of the show was fascinating.
You couldn't keep it together.
I know,
until
until you
got
left
out
the
of
studio. I know. The producers noticed a connection between Ingram's answers and a series of coughs heard in the studio. Some coughs came from one of the waiting contestants, a guy named Tequin Whitlock, while another came from Ingram's wife, Diana, while she was in the audience. Based on all this evidence, all three were accused of cheating. Basically, they thought that when the questions were read and all the potential multiple choice answers were given, the person would cough during the correct answer. The producers literally made a federal case out of this. The prosecution alleged that there were 192 coughs recorded during the second night performance, and 32 of these were significant, in quotes, those are their words, and had been done by this guy Whitlock, who they thought was in cahoots. During the trial, another contestant on the show was adamant that he had known the answer to Ingram's questions and told the court that he'd been able to detect a pattern of coughing that he was entirely convinced had been designed to help Ingram when the correct answer was given. However, Chris Tarrant, the host of the show, denied hearing any coughing during the episode, claiming that he was too busy, hosting the show to notice. Following a 4-week trial...
So there was a guy who came in and snitched?
No, not snitched, but just like, wait a minute, like, there was always a cough when the correct answer was given. I noticed it even at the time. Yeah.
Sounds like snitching.
Sure. All right. Following a 4-week trial, Ingram, his wife, and this other contestant, Whitlock, were convicted and given prison sentences. The Ingrams were sentenced to 18 months, while Whitlock was sentenced to 12 months, and each fined £15,000 and were ordered to pay prosecution and defense costs, which meant that they were out some £115,000. The Army Board ordered Ingram to resign his commission as major after 16 years of service, but allowed him to keep his pension.
Well,
Yeah.
generous, yeah.
Ingram, for his part, claims that he neither listened for, encouraged, or noticed any coughing. Later, in 2003, Ingram and his wife were charged with further fraud offenses after they attempted to claim on an insurance policy after an alleged burglary at his home. He was given a conditional discharge on the charge of fraudulently claiming £30,000 on insurance. Karma sought vengeance on Ingram in 2010, however, when he lost 3 toes on his left foot in a lawn mowing accident.
I don't know, man. Like all this effort, like Apple doesn't pay taxes in some countries. Like, just feels so like petty. I don't care. Let him cheat. What did he do? Who did he defraud? The British television public?
He cheated
Why are we
well. Well, I guess he didn't cheat that
why
well.
are we enforcing this like it's international? Well, we don't even obey international law at this point. But like, why? What is this? What happens? Who cares? Flip a coin. Let that be it. Guilty or not guilty. Who cares? My God.
I mean, maybe it was a precedent from the 50s quiz show scandals, which went all the way to the Senate floor because it was an FCC thing about like defrauding the public, was that these shows were rigged.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe it became more than just like, hey, you took our money. It was a whole like, our license is at stake here or something like that. Maybe it was that, Well, before we wrap this episode up, I want to do a little millionaire quiz moment for my friend Alex Heigl.
Oh, hell yeah.
And see if he has what it takes to answer some of the $1 million questions that have been given on the American version of the show. What do you think? Want to go for it?
Buddy, I'm ready.
Or you can give them to me, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
Okay, well, we did the laughing one. Okay, this one's from January 10th, 2000. In what language was Anne Frank's original diary first published? Was it A, Dutch, B, English, C, French, D, German? That's an easy one, I gotta say.
Is it?
Yeah.
Dutch.
Yes, correct.
Sick.
Alex Heigl, you just won $1 million.
Wow. Give me another one.
The Earth is approximately, this one's kind of boring. How many miles away from the sun? Is it A?
That counts as math. Who
Yeah,
cares?
no, I agree. Yeah. In what country are all U.S. Major League Baseballs currently manufactured? Is it Costa Rica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, or Cuba?
I had a trade embargo with Cuba.
You're correct.
Everyone hates Haiti.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah. So what were the other one? Dominican Republic
And Costa Rica.
Dominican Republic.
Costa Rica, I'm sorry.
Oh, there I go all the way back down to $25,000. No.
What Shakespeare character says something is rotten in the state of Denmark? Is it A, Hamlet, B, Marcellus, C, Horatio, or D, Laertes?
Marcellus Wallace from Pulp Fiction?
You're kind of correct. Oh, this is great. I think you will probably know this. This is a good question. Which insect shorted out an early supercomputer and inspired the term computer bug? Is it moth, roach, fly, or Japanese beetle?
Wow, Japanese beetle's tempting just because of the specificity, but fly?
Moth.
Oh, yeah, I guess that tracks. Well, we've established that I'm a loser.
No.
Jordan, according to the Population Reference Bureau, what is the approximate number of people who have ever lived on Earth?
Oh, that's close to math, but I'll allow it.
Is it 50 billion, 100 billion, 1 trillion, or 5 trillion?
100 billion.
That is correct. A rare example of a word that does indeed rhyme with orange. The Blorenge is a what? A river in Scotland? Oh, sorry, a river in Ireland, a forest in Scotland, a mountain in Wales, or a desert in Australia?
I'll be so pissed if it's Australia after we just did our Crocodile Dundee episode. River in Ireland or a forest in Scotland? Those are
Or a mountain in Wales?
Scotland.
It was a mountain in Wales.
Oh, that seems like a Welsh word. It does.
Orange, yeah, but I discounted it too because it doesn't have the prevalence of consonants that they usually have. Okay. Which of the following is not the title of a country song released by Netflix star Joe Exotic, aka the Tiger King? Is it Big Hearted Cat, I Saw a Tiger, Here Kitty Kitty, or King of the Beast?
King of the Beast seems like an Elvis song or something. I'm going to say that. Tiger Man.
Incorrect.
Oh, no.
Incorrect. The correct answer is Big Hearted Cat.
I guess in retrospect, I probably should have guessed that, huh? Yeah.
Compiled by Benjamin Franklin in 1737, the Drinker's Dictionary included all but which of these synonyms for drunkenness? Nimtopsical, buzzy, pifflecated, or staggerish?
Bifurcated with a B or with a P?
Pifflecated, like possum.
I'll go with that one.
You are correct, sir. This one's just crazy, and it's going to be the last one. Nephelococcygia is the practice of doing what? Finding shapes in clouds, sneezing with your eyes open, breaking glass with your voice, or swimming in freezing water?
Can you spell it for me?
Nephelococcygia. Nephelococcygia. Finding shapes in clouds, sneezing with your eyes open, breaking glass with your voice, or swimming in freezing water?
Breaking glass with your voice?
No, finding shapes in clouds.
Oh, well, that was actually last on.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let me ask you one more, just because it feels very. I just think you'll enjoy this one. What is the last word in the Old Testament? Is it forever, true, prayer, or curse?
Wow. Forever seems appropriate. True also does. I don't think curse is actually. I don't know. What was the third one?
Prayer. Forever, true, prayer, or curse?
Last words of the Old Testament.
Old Testament.
Curse.
Yes. You are correct, sir.
Old Testament's the vengeful one.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
I'm just scanning to see if there's any else that are like notably. When the TV series The Brady Bunch was Carol Brady's maiden name. You'll never get it. Tyler. That's a great question, though. Oh, this is actually a great question. There's no reason anyone should know it. But what club did astronaut Alan Shepard use to make his famous golf shot on the moon? That's incredible.
Do you know?
No, I had no idea.
Which one is it?
6 iron.
6 iron. Yeah.
Who's the only Nobel laureate to win an Academy Award? That's really good. Steinbeck, Sartre, George Bernard Shaw, or Toni Morrison?
Toni Morrison.
I would have said that too. It's George Bernard Shaw.
Really?
Yeah.
What did he win his Oscar for? Adapted screenplay for something? It had to be adapted
Pygmalion.
screenplay for something.
Probably Pygmalion.
All right.
Oh, wait. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's the last one.
I was going to say, you're losing them, folks.
The U.S. icon Uncle Sam was based on Sam Wilson, who worked during the War of 1812 as what? A meat inspector, a mail deliverer, a historian, or a weapons mechanic?
Mail guy.
Meat inspector. Uncle Sam is a meat inspector.
Well, given the amount of atrocities the country would go on to commit.
Oh, wow. Hamburger Hill. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, folks, for the ride out, that's how I used to always end my college radio show. For the ride out tonight,
okay.
I'd like to give you a quote from a piece in Slate by Justin Peters, who, like me, was a digital media writer who achieved his childhood dream of appearing on Millionaire only to fall short of the titular question. Unlike me, he got farther and fell further and was plunged into a deep depression afterwards, whereas I was just mildly annoyed. He wrote about it several times, including in a piece called I Wanted to Be a Millionaire, How Failing Colossally on a Game Show Changed My Life for the Better. I'd like to read you some of his writing here. The experience of losing big on Millionaire almost broke me. The shock of the sudden loss, and it was a loss, even though it wasn't as if the Millionaire producers had deducted $225,000 from my actual bank account, sent me into a depressive state. I'd come so close to fulfilling the show's big promise, and the act of falling short made me feel like I was worse off than if I'd never been on the show at all. To this very day, I'm still occasionally seized with paralyzing regret over my bad choice. Online journalism is not a lucrative field. The Millionaire money I so recklessly risked and lost would have given me real financial security for the first time in my life. But then he talks about hearing from fellow game show losers and even playing on a trivia team with some. And then he continues, there's something liberating in reaching for something meaningful, even if you aren't sure you'll get it. I guessed on the $500,000 question because that was the only way I would ever get to the $1 million question. That decision took guts and stupidity, but mostly guts. And once I realized I've got guts, I decided to reorder my life around them. Since Millionaire, I've done scores of things I'd always wanted to do but never took the leap to pursue. This may be the path prescribed by countless self-help books. It just so happens that Millionaire was mine. The simple lesson that Millionaire taught me is that if you want to change your life, either by winning a lot of money on television or by some more prosaic means, at some point you're going to have to take a risk. Unless you're John Carpenter, the famous winner of the show.
The other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. You will eventually have to take a step into the unknown, bet on yourself, and hope that you are making the right decision. And I think that's a good note to end on, as well as a reminder that at some time or another, we are all losers.
And the weakest link.
I think I'm the weakest link on this show. I saw those.
That's
people.
not
I saw the people on
true.
Twitter today saying they like the mean one better.
That's not true. Yeah, I don't know. It's a game show. Whatever, man. It ain't. This isn't serious. This isn't an album. This isn't a piece of art.
Who is a Millionaire is a celebration of trivia and banality. I thought you would like. Come on. It's kind of it's
like
our
that.
bit.
I like that. I'm not gonna like pretend that it's more. It's not. It's not Puccini.
I know it's not Nebraska. It's not.
It's not The Simpsons.
No.
It's not even the Brady Bunch.
I almost did Bewitched for this episode. So
that would've
you
been
got
cool.
oh really? All right, I'll do Bewitched
Yeah,
next.
I like
Fine.
Bewitched.
I'll do that next. Turned 60 this year.
Yeah, I mean, take a risk. Fuck it, dude. Life's a risk. There's a punk band called Fiddler, and they put it much more succinctly than this guy.
What did Fiddler say?
They said, "Fuck it, dude. Life's a risk."
I thought that was from The Big Lebowski, but that's Let's Go Bowling.
Yeah, it's "Fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling."
Yeah.
At the end of it, Jordan, I don't care.
Is that your final answer?
Ooh, how did we escape making that into a bit? You know, at the end of the day, Jordan?
Do you want to phone a friend? Oh, I guess I'm already
I do.
here.
Yeah, you're my only friend. Jordan. Pring. Pring.
All right. Hi. Hello.
Oh my God, Jordan. I'm in deep trouble. They're going to break my
What's going on?
They're gonna take my knees, buddy. I said I didn't care about a game show. Do I care about a game show? Do I care about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? What's my right answer?
Making money off of useless crap? Yes, I assume you would.
Oh, okay. We don't do that though, right? Not anymore. No. Oh, I forgot to shout out our Ko-fi. Oh, you did it at the top. Okay. All right. I'm gonna. Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Put me back on the show. Regis. Actually, Cedric, Mr. Entertainer. I've decided to go with my friend Jordan's answer. I believe I actually do care about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Thank you for listening. This has been Too Much Information. I'm Alex Heigl.
I'm Jordan Runtagh. We'll catch you next time. Too Much Information was a production of iHeart Radio.
The show's executive producers are Noel Brown and Jordan Runtagh.
The show's supervising producer is Michael Alder June.
The show was researched, written, and hosted by Jordan Runtagh and Alex Heigl.
With original music by Seth Applebaum and the Ghost Funk Orchestra. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. For more podcasts on iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.